Hello, everyone. I am Belinda Cheeseborough, STEM Education Specialist at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I'm here to share the stories of African Americans and the impacts they've had and continue to have on our American culture because of their STEM contributions. Through the Window and Into the Mirror is a career conversation series about the experiences of African Americans today. During this session, students will peer into the windows of their speakers' lives and learn from their lived experiences. They will also find parts of their culture and lifestyle mirrored in their stories. To everyone listening, it is our hope that you leave here with information, inspiration, and plans for action as you take your first steps towards having careers in STEM. Now, let's meet our speaker. Welcome, Dr. Tasia Bryson.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me today.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you here. I'm very excited to chat with you today while engaging the teachers, students, and their families who will be watching this interview. So to kick things off, let's start off with our first question. So please tell us briefly about yourself, what you do, and anything important that you think we should know.
Okay. My name is Tasia Bryson. I am a program manager for the Department of Energy. I am the CEO for Sciences That Elevates Me. And something that I think is important for people to know is I love to travel. I love experiencing new things in life, trying new restaurants, concerts, sporting events. And I really do enjoy spending time with my family and friends and my cat. I can't forget about Luna.
Oh, you got cats. We're going to talk about that later because I got cats too. So. Okay, so starting off with childhood,
Mhm.
let's go back. Did you have interest in STEM while you're growing up? And what positive STEM experiences did you have that later inspired you to pursue a career in STEM?
So, actually, I did not have STEM experiences when I was younger. And I think that that is part of what I love to do when it comes to scientists that elevate me with exposing Black and Brown students to opportunities and careers in STEM and just get them more involved and active in it. Because when I was younger, to be honest, I did not know that I liked science or enjoyed science or could even be good at science. It's not that someone told me that I was bad in it. It just did not really spark my interest. So when I was in school and I was learning about sciences, all the sciences that I learned about were old white men. And so if it wasn't Black History Month, I never really understood our contribution to science at all.
You bring up a very important point about representation. I know that's a big part of your organization, and we'll definitely get into that later. But that is a very important point, and this is something I've seen recurring through people that I've interviewed in the
Yes.
past of like, well, I didn't see someone like me doing it, so I didn't think that I could do it. And
Yeah.
I find that interesting because I feel like in some ways that wasn't my experience because I felt like I wasn't focused on seeing who was doing it. I was like, that looks cool. I want to do it too.
Mhm.
So I find that interesting. But again,
I don't know. I think even when I reflect back, like when I saw my high school transcript as an adult, I looked at my high school's transcript and I'm like, how didn't anyone know that, they should talk to me about careers in science? My senior year, I had three science classes. I took physics, forensics, and human anatomy because, of course, when I was younger, I was like, I want to be a nurse. That is why I took science in order to go into nursing. I did not start off taking science because I'm like, oh, I have a love for answering unknown questions or exploring. It was more so of, oh, I have to take this in order to get into nursing school.
that makes sense. I feel
Yes.
like after I also decided my career, when I decided that I wanted to pursue astrophysics in high school, I was definitely like, okay, I need to start taking these classes in order to be able to do that. So that makes sense. So while growing up, did you have any big role models or influencers?
Okay, so the parents that will be listening to this, they will probably know this a little more. So when I was younger, between the ages of 3 and 5, my mom used to sit me down and we used to watch A Different World. And she used to always say, look, Tay, you're going to live at college, not live on campus. She said, you're going to live at college, you're going to have friends. And she told me this when I was a little girl. And one of the characters' name on the show was Kimberly Reese. And I want to say I think her real name is Charlene. I could be getting it wrong. But her character name was Kimberly Reese. She went to school for biology and she was going to be a doctor. So she's dark skinned, I was really able to see myself in her. And so that was really big for me. A Different World. So Kimberly Reese, and I would like to say, I want to say when I got my master's degree, I wrote a post on Facebook and she responded to my post. So she understands
Oh
the
my
impact. Yes, she is my Facebook friend. Because I wanted her to know that this role was so impactful for me to be able to see someone Black in college going to school to be a doctor. Like, that is what I saw. It wasn't in school, it was TV. So between her and Oprah Winfrey, because we used to watch Oprah, and my mom
God.
told me that I was going to be, she was like, she was like, you're going to be able to speak, you're going to be able to feel comfortable in front of people. Like, these are the thoughts that she instilled in my head as a child. So I was like, I'm going to be like Oprah. I'm going to be able to talk to anybody. I am going to be able to speak. I'm going to feel. I just started thinking that because she said it so much. And then when I look at myself and what I do for a living, I know it really started at an early age of her just instilling in me what I can do.
That is so beautiful. If I wasn't wearing makeup right now, I would just cry because like no,
It's
but
so true.
no, like that is so loving. Like your parent, like your mom, especially being that person to really instill that confidence in you of like, you are my daughter. You are capable of anything.
Anything. And then for my mom, she grew up in Yazoo, Mississippi, doing civil rights. So like my mom, my
Mm,
family were the first to integrate a segregated school. So my family was the
wow.
first Black family at the school. So for my mom, she knew what it is that she wanted me to experience and wanted me to have access to. So it took some trial and tribulations, but
Of course.
we made it there. We made it there.
No, that is beautiful. And that definitely makes a difference. I know that that time period had a big impact on that generation. So it makes sense that she was like, no, don't let anyone tell
Yeah.
you that you can't be in these spaces and don't let
Mhm.
anyone push you out from where you're supposed to be. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I understand that. So what are some other hobbies or interests you had while growing up that are not STEM related per se?
So I want to say, I've always been outgoing, talkative. But I did cheerleading.
Oh,
I did cheerleading from 8th grade until my senior year in high school, different dance teams, poms, volleyball. Um,
you were active.
I was very, very active. When I say my mom made sure that I was active, I think the first thing that I ever did was take swimming. And so,
Oh,
Black girls in hair, and that was like a whole thing. And
mm-hmm.
to this day, like I love water. Still don't like getting my hair wet as much,
Yeah,
but
yeah, no.
that is something that I got into in 5th grade, like literally competitive swimming. So swimming on a team that competes against others. And it really opened up my eyes and kind of got me more active at a younger age. So yeah.
That's really cool. I did swimming, but definitely not to that level. It was more so the casual swimming lessons. And the only reason I look forward to it is because my dad would take me to get McDonald's for breakfast in the morning, and then we go swimming.
Like, I guess this will work. No, yeah, I started swimming, but I only did it for a short amount of time. But dance and cheerleading is something that I did from about 7th to 8th grade throughout high school.
Okay, that's really awesome.
Thank you.
So now moving into your undergrad, where
Yes.
did you go for undergrad, and what did you major in, and why did you decide to pursue that major?
So I started off undergrad at Grand Valley State University in Allendale, Michigan, because as a high school senior, I wanted to go away. I wanted to get away. So I went there for my first year and I ended up not going back my second year. It was a mix of finances, paying for school, um, room and board, books. It was definitely a lot. And so I ended up coming home, and then I went to a community college. So I went to South Suburban Community College for 2 years. And then after I received my associate's degree in general science, I went to Chicago State University and I majored in chemistry with a biochemistry option.
Oh, wow. So how did you decide to transition into that? Because you said you, first of all, you said I didn't really have an interest in science. Nobody picked me out and was like, oh, you should definitely pursue science as a kid. Everyone was just like, oh, yeah, you wanted to go into nursing. So how did you?
So when I was at South Suburban, one of my professors, she was my math professor. Her name is Amy Kelly. I told her I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to go to a school that it was a private school in Illinois, kind of expensive. And so she had also received an expensive education. But one thing you know about it, once you have those student loans, you really try to guide students to an education that it will be good. They can have different resources such as scholarships, fellowships, and opportunities. And so South Suburban was a part of a LSM, Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation,
Mm,
was a part of it, and Chicago State University was the lead institution. So Amy Kelly told me, like, you should go visit Chicago State University. They have nursing, they have other science programs, and I really didn't think about it that way. So because I had such a good relationship with her and I trust her, I went to Chicago State University for a visit and I met, his name is Dr. Leroy Jones. He was the director of the Center for STEM Education and Research at Chicago State University. And when I met him, he told me about the opportunities that he helped students get if they were science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And so during that time, although I was a nursing major, my focus was nursing at the 2 year school, I was so emotional. So I took a step back and I was like, is nursing for me? I mean, I was crying through Hallmark movies, Lifetime movies. So
mm,
real life things, it was just emotional and I was young. As an adult now, I feel like I would have been able to do it, but at 19 and 20, I'm like, I don't want to be sad every day. I don't want to interact with people and they're sad.
yeah.
So I was on Chicago State campus and I walked into an office and I wanted to ask a question, how do I change my major? Because my major was nursing. I walked into the chemistry office and the chair at the time, his name was Dr. Dave Canis. And he said, oh, you want to change your major? And I was like, yes. He was like, well, what do you want to change it to? And I was like, I don't really know. He looked at my transcript and was like, oh, you're really good at science. The first person that ever told me that I was good at
Wow.
science. And he said, you should be a chemistry major. He told me all the wonderful things that I could do in chemistry, all of the opportunities. And I signed my name on a dotted line, not knowing what I was signing away to. But I signed my name on a dotted line, and it definitely was a life changer.
That, oh my goodness. See, all it takes is one person to be like,
Yes.
hey, you're really good at this. You should do this thing.
And I was like, chemistry. I'm like, that sounds okay. Research and just how it connected to um, other subjects and the research that I can do, what I could do afterwards. And then,
And you could still go into medicine if you wanted
I
to.
could still go into medicine if I wanted to. And I
Mhm.
was really happy. Um, didn't know what I was getting myself into. We'll talk about that later. But that's how I came into even have an interest in a degree in chemistry.
Wow. I remember when I was visiting my school that I was going to go to and trying to decide which major I wanted to pursue. And I already set like I wanted to do physics, but I was like, maybe I should at least, entertain the thought of other interests. And my other interest was chemistry. I was actually thinking of being a chemistry major. And what it didn't turn me off, but what appealed to me more was the physics side because I literally
Okay.
met like he was one of like the lab managers and he was
Mhm.
like, "You want to see the toys we got in the back?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So he pulled out the electron beam and like his other stuff. He's like, "We're working
Um,
on a death ray." And I was like, "Okay, I need to be in physics."
yep, that's
I'm
perfect
sold.
right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Just show me all the toys and trinkets that I could play with and learn more. Okay, cool. I went to chemistry and he was like, here's this like simulation, this model of a molecule, and you can see that it's like jiggling in this right way. And I was like, that's interesting. I'm gonna go with physics though.
It
he
was
was
it was meant.
he was still a really good chemistry professor though. I sat in the front, loved him. It was great. But yeah, I almost was a chemistry major.
See, we're already here, but it would have been given.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit more about your experience while you were doing chemistry there at Chicago State, right? Because you got your associate degree from the
Hmm.
community college and then went straight to Chicago State to
Yes.
do the biochemical major.
Yep, biochemistry major.
Yeah. So what opportunities did you have while at Chicago State that helped towards your career goals now that you've kind of settled into a new major?
So, when I was at Chicago State, I really took advantage of the tutoring, different mentoring, something that was very beneficial. And I really, really push students to take advantage of our REUs, which are research educational experiences. It's there for undergraduate students in the summer. They're usually between 6 to 10 weeks. They pay for um, your stipend, food, your lodging for that time. And it's really an opportunity for you to get hands-on experience in different areas, mentorship, expand your network, learn how to communicate scientific knowledge, presenting oral poster presentations. It's extremely, extremely good. And so when I was at Chicago State, I participated in three different REUs, one at the University of Southern Mississippi, which was
Oh,
on organic polymers. The second one was at the University of Chicago, and that was more of medical research. And then the third one was actually at Chicago State University, and it was educational research, which is an area that I'm really heavily focused in now. So being able to l- have experience doing research in three different areas really helped me build my scientific identity. It let me learn what were my strengths, what was I interested in. And so when I went to graduate school, I wasn't still trying to figure myself out. I already knew, and it was based on those experiences that I received when I were in undergrad.
REUs are truly powerful
Yeah,
experiences when you approach them correctly, like you did.
yes. And you know what? And it's not like I was just this like top student that got all of these opportunities. Like so the University of Southern Mississippi is in Hattiesburg. And I only applied for that because I signed up for classes late and I needed my advisor to override a class that she was teaching. And she
Okay.
asked me if I applied for any summer REUs. And I was like, no, like I'm gonna just stay and work on campus because I had a like a student worker position,
Mm.
but it wasn't science focused. And so I'm really glad that she took that time to say, I know, you still have bills you have to pay, but a summer opportunity will also pay you. And the importance of gaining that research knowledge, I didn't really understand that. And so
Hmm.
I just needed to get into a class. So she was like, if you apply for a REU, you don't have to get in, but if you apply for it, I'll put you in a class. So I looked, there was a stack of them, and my aunt lived in Hattiesburg. And so I was like, oh, University of Southern Mississippi. And she was like, I think you should apply. She was like, we had students apply last year and nobody got in.
Oh,
For me, I'm like, if top students are not gonna get in,
then
like
how am I? Yeah.
I'm not gonna get in, but I had plans in Chicago that summer. So it wasn't about getting in, it was just let me do it so she can put me in a class. I applied, I thought nothing of it. And then one day I got a call from University of Southern Mississippi congratulating me. And I was like in tears because I had plans for the summer. Now I was gonna be in Mississippi for the like who wants to at that time, I'm young. I'm like, who wants to be in Mississippi?
Mm-hmm.
Or this I hadn't had a summer in Mississippi since I was like 14. Um, and I went and it was actually the best RBU experience that I've ever had. And it was a topic that I was not interested in, but it was the best opportunity.
That that is a good REU. That is what you should feel when you go through it, is that you are getting the experience that you need and understanding like this is what research is about, and then discovering like, oh, do I like this or do I not like this?
Yeah,
That is
so
really awesome.
I really, I, I've just gotten better at it over time. But yes,
And you managed to do 3 REUs. I only got into one when I was an undergrad. And it's because I only cared about getting into a very specific one. So I kept applying each year until I finally got in.
see,
Um, but yeah.
so for me, like each experience was different. The one from the University of Chicago that I participated in, I went to a LSM conference, and there was a guy, he was a keynote speaker. And he said, if you're interested, let me know. So I let him know. He never responded back. So by the time he got back to me, it was like the deadline had passed.
Oh my goodness. Of course.
And so, yes, Dr. Jones, once again, I had went to him. I was like, hey, I'm emailing him. He's not emailing me back. So Dr. Jones was like, well, CC me on the email and I'll write him. So that's what he did. And he ended up like extending the deadline. Chicago State helped me apply and they accepted me. It was when I say,
Wow.
and that's an example of networking and connections. Honestly, if it wasn't for Dr. Jones and his relationship, he probably wouldn't have got, he's busy. He probably wouldn't have got a chance. But when he saw Dr., or Leroy Jones, and it was on the
Someone
email.
sponsoring you, someone representing you, advocating for you.
Yes. And when I came to apply, because I had the support of the center, my application was solid. I just didn't turn in
Mm,
anything, but I had my advisors, I had faculty to be able to look at my material when I applied. So it worked.
okay. So now that you've had those colorful RU experiences that helped
Yes.
guide you into what you wanted to do, how did you decide that you wanted to continue on to grad school and what you wanted, like which program you wanted to go to and what you wanted to do for research?
So after undergrad, I was pretty much done in my mind with science. I did not want to do science anymore.
Wow.
um, Not bench science. So I wanted to plan REU experiences for students. I wanted to be the person that coordinate REU
Oh,
experience workshops and seminars. So Dr. Jones had a position in his office, and at first it was part-time. So he asked me, what is it that I wanted to do? And I really wanted to work in higher ed. So I wanted to get a master's degree in higher education administration. CSU had a program, it was a 2-year program. So Dr. Jones took my part-time position, made it a full-time position. Then I was able
wow.
to get my master's degree paid for. So while I was in my higher ed program, I did everything from a STEM or science perspective. So I
Mm.
was like, I love this. I love education. I love science. So I started exploring programs for science education. And I wanted to do what Dr. Jones did. I wanted to write grants. I wanted to manage grants. I wanted to really pour into students of color because I was able to see those gaps. Although I came from Chicago State University, when I went to other schools to do REUs, I was one or two students. Or even if I did a REU for students of color, everyone in the REU cohort was of color, but I was the only Black person in my lab.
Mm.
And so I knew the work needed to be done, and I explored science education programs for PhDs because Dr. Jones really pushed me to get a PhD. And we always joke to this day that he fired me. So I could go and get my PhD, but I was able to get it fully funded. So I did my PhD at Western Michigan University. And so it's a science education program. My background is chemistry, but what was different about this program is that it's out of the College of Arts and Science. So everyone in my program had a hard science background. Our professors all were from a hard science. So they had a dual appointmentship. They were a faculty in biology, physics, or chemistry, and then they also was a faculty member within science ed. So
Oh,
I
nice.
was really able to keep that science identity. And because the program is a science education program, science is at the core of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really allowed me to still interact with students in the sciences, teach science courses, and be centered around people who had a science identity.
That is awesome. Because I was actually going to ask, like, anywhere through that process, did you feel like you were struggling with your scientist identity? Like, even though you had that strong background of chemistry and you were doing science education, did you feel like, am I still really that researcher, that dog? Is that dog still in you? When you, you know what I mean?
It was there. And it always had to be there because every class was centered around science. And then we learned, because we all were from different physics, biology, geo,
Mm-hmm.
chemistry, um, environmental, it was just in the core, and it was
Mm-hmm.
within every class that we were required to take.
It was foundational. So,
Everything.
okay.
Yep,
That is awesome. So during your graduate experience into getting your PhD, and it seems like Dr. Jones has been the MVP of this story
really
in
is.
more ways than one.
Yes.
What were the good and challenging parts of your grad school experience?
The challenging parts of my graduate school experience is that I was the only Black American within my program. So when we talk about representations and developing that sense of belonging, it was a little difficult because the only Black person that I will come in contact with was the janitor. Like, people don't understand how happy I will be when she comes to say hello or asks me how I'm doing or lets me know, like, we proud of you, keep going. She ended up retiring after my third year, but the first 2 years, that was the only interaction that I really had consistently in my department, or my, yeah, like in my institute. It just wasn't there. So being the only one in classes, always feeling like that I have to advocate for people of color, people from a low socioeconomic status,
Mm-hmm.
it gets draining, and it's sometimes difficult. So that was a challenge. Chicago State was a small, predominantly Black institution. I think when I left, we probably had about 5,500 students at the time. And then Western Michigan was about 26,000. It was predominantly white. So
Wow.
making that adjustment was difficult. Being the only one was very challenging.
Being the only one is never fun.
No. It is. It really isn't. No.
Yeah, I remember when I rolled up to my graduate program at WVU and I came in and I found out that the first Black person to get their PhD in physics happened in like 2013. and this was 2015 when I was rolling in.
So, but you were still, so your PhD is in physics?
Hmm.
And when did you finish?
I finished in 2021, and I ended up being the first Black woman to get her PhD in physics from that school.
Because, but I think you're still in the top 100. I don't think that physics has yet to reach 100 when it comes to Black women in physics. I will have to
Yeah.
double check, but I
Yeah, I
know
was like, we
that,
could double check because I know there's something keeping track. I know
is
Dr. James
someone keeping,
Valentine is
yes,
keeping track of all the physics people and where they're at. But I know I'm definitely one of the 100 or at least just after the 100
yes.
to have graduated with it. But yeah, as I said, like I wasn't the only one. Of course, more Black women came in after
Mhm.
I came in, which is great. Um, but it's still, I get it.
Yes.
Yeah. Thankfully, I had some good friends around even then that still made me feel supported regardless.
Because
But
that's very important. But I didn't understand when people talked about, this community, and I'm going to put the quotes on there because that's how I
hmm
community in grad school. I'm like, listen, I'm in and out. I know what I'm going for. And that was my thought. But I was so naive. I did not understand. I had a really good support system at Western Michigan outside of my department. And within my department, my advisor, I still work with her to this day. Her name is Dr. Megan Gruner
hmm
Kowalski. Well, I have to make sure I put her now name Kowalski. But if it wasn't for her and the work that she did to go over and beyond what a typical advisor is going to do, I have no idea. So I'm very grateful for my graduate advisor.
Having a good grad advisor is rare. So
Yes.
I'm really happy that you have one because a lot of us have stories about the first one and the second one and sometimes the third.
Yes.
So
Oh, I definitely understand. Yes.
yeah, but I'm really glad that you had a really good advisor that saw you and wanted to advocate for you because as you mentioned, it's very tiring to
It is.
advocate for yourself,
Yes.
especially when you don't have the support that you need to do so. So
Absolutely.
that's awesome. So now moving into your current career.
Mhm.
So you have a fellowship through AAAS, right? And that's how you're working with the DOE?
Yes. So, okay.
Or is that, or they're two separate things? I want
It
to,
is too, so no. Okay, so I'll tell you this. So when I was in graduate school, I did my research in grad school. I looked at challenges and experiences of students of color in science. So that's why I'm always connected. And when you talked about the advisor-advisee relationship, I'm like, oh, yes, I know. Because my dissertation, I did a 3-article dissertation on the impact of the advisor-advisee relationship among Black and Latinx students, STEM students at predominantly white
institution.
institutions. And so once I finished my PhD, I went to the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and completed a postdoc.
Mm,
And my postdoc, I loved it. UMass Boston, I had the best advisor. Her name is Dr. Carrie Wilkins Yale. And so her project or her grant, the I Can Persist, she has an initiative. It's the I Can Persist STEM initiative, where it focuses on increasing the number of girls and women of color in STEM. So
mm.
this journey that I started at Chicago State University, went to Western Michigan. Now I'm at UMass Boston. I love STEM spaces. I love to explore. And so I wanted to do more, but at a higher level. So I wanted to get into public policies. So science policies, and that is what brought me to AAAS. So I did write it down so I can say it correctly. So AAAS is the American Association for the Advancement of Science. So typically, AAAS takes people with science backgrounds and they go to federal agencies depending on their passion, the work that they want to do, how they want to contribute. So for me, I really want to increase the number of students of color who have opportunities in STEM. And so that's what led me to the Department of Energy, because I know that the Department of Energy works with, I want to say it's 9 to 11 national labs. And
Mm.
so during my postdoc, I wrote a paper stating how DOE, the Department of Energy, can leverage their labs to produce more Black people. At that time, I did not know that I would be a AAAS fellow at DOE. I always thought that I would be a AAAS fellow at the National Science Foundation, because
Oh,
I love NSF. Like, NSF is home for me.
yeah.
And actually, Dr. Jones, who was at Chicago State, is at NSF. So
Oh, that's why
everybody,
another reason.
everyone was like, even when I was interviewing, they were like, we're gonna lose her to Dr. Jones. Everyone just knew that. And then Dr. Jones was like, no, like she might find something that's a better fit. And so NSF is truly home for me. I love NSF. I love the work that they do and how they're literally changing lives in science. But I wanted to be in a space where I can learn, grow, network. I really did not know as much about DOE. So being able to be a AAAS fellow for the Department of Energy, I am really able to do the work. So looking at how to produce more Black scientists, how to have those scientists trained and knowledgeable to be able to be prepared and to go to the national labs. That is the work that I want to do. So as a program manager for the Department of Energy, I'm in the nuclear physics office.
A
New
little different from chemistry,
A
just a little
little
different.
different from chemistry. I'm always reading the topics and proposals like, this is let me look this up. But a lot of the skills that I have are transferable. So of course it was a steep learning curve going into nuclear physics, but as a physicist, you understand that there are not a lot of people of color in physics.
Hmm.
And when you look at nuclear physics, those numbers are even smaller.
Yeah.
So, being a program manager, I'm the program manager for Fair and Renew, which are two funding sources that allow students of color to be mentored, have hands-on experiences, have opportunities at national labs, and then to also increase the Department of Energy engagement with minority serving institutions, HBCUs, non-R1 institutions. And so,
Interesting.
yes, even like funding, so providing infrastructures, getting the lab equipment that's needed to do this high level of nuclear physics research. Now MSUs and HBCUs are able to apply and to get money. So now their students are getting paid to be trained. Now they're able to order the equipment and do experiments at national labs.
Oh, that's so
Wonderful
cool.
opportunity. And so for me to be that person that's able to talk to HBCUs and MSIs and say, hey, these are the opportunities that we have. This is how you learn to collaborate with the lab, taking people that I know from the national labs, introducing them to faculty at HBCUs and MSIs, facilitating those, like help building those collaborations and relationships. I love it. So it's literally making a difference.
You found your little home, your little pocket where you can be comfy in.
I did. It's a lot of work.
No, yeah.
It's not always pretty, but to be able to see students have opportunities and to see how those opportunities impact their science identity and their career trajectory is very, very light. It gives me butterflies. So yeah.
So you're helping little travelers along the way.
Yes.
You're like the inn. that travelers come to stop
And
by.
yep, and many students don't know I exist. Well, I do get a chance to go to conferences, so I'm still going to conferences, talking to students, networking, but just not teaching classes or on campus. This is my first year not at a university in over 10 years, so this has definitely been an adjustment.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. So you mentioned earlier that you started a business called
Yes.
Scientists That Elevate Me. We see that in the background there. So can
Yes.
you tell us about what the motivation was behind that and what is Scientists That Elevate Me, all the cool things,
Ye
advertise.
yes. So Scientists That Elevate Me, we expose, Black and brown students to careers and opportunities in STEM. We provide various workshops, and a lot of our workshops are virtual. We bring scientists to a Zoom platform. They talk about, similar to what we did today, they talk about their research, they talk about their STEM journey. They usually do it with a PowerPoint. We encourage them to use pictures, videos, demonstrations. Absolutely phenomenal. We go to different conferences. We pair students together who needs mentoring. We provide workshops and seminars for faculty. It is really good. And I never thought that I would be a person with a STEM business. It's not like I'm like, oh, I want my own business. This was not it. So I was a teacher for Upward Bound, which is a trio program. You probably are aware of Upward Bound, but if someone is watching this and they don't know, usually at colleges, different universities and institutions, they have an Upward Bound program, which are for students from low income areas, first generation college students, and it exposed them to college preparation. And so I was a science teacher for Upward Bound, and I
Mm.
brought Black and brown scientists because this was during the pandemic, so it was virtual. I bought Black and brown scientists to Zoom, and they talked to students about their research and their careers, and they loved it. So other Upward Bound programs were interested with me coming in, and I'm like, why limit this to Upward Bound when I have so much experience within higher education? And so we have just been growing, doing workshops nationwide, different
Wow.
conferences from Boston to Portland, Portland, Oregon. And it's good. And it also gives me the opportunity to give back. So book vouchers, I do different raffles. I just funded a faculty member or a postdoc to attend a conference to do a presentation to students of color. So we're in so many spaces, but the goal is to really help students of color. So instead of students being exposed to science later, if we can have a fun demonstration for first graders or for sixth graders, we want to be in the space.
That oh, sorry. This is getting emotional. That is just like so beautiful. And I was just thinking while you were describing all of this, how much as Black scientists, how we love that we want to give back to our community. I think it's
Yes.
because we're Black, we raised with this community mindset that we should, be there for the community and also rising out of the community to do the things that we do, but always finding some way in when we establish ourselves to give back to our
Yes.
community.
And then some sciences, like they don't have a lot of time. People, they have commitments, they have their jobs, they have families, children. And so to be able to take an hour on your lunch break or out of the week to come and to mentor students or to not have a long-term commitment is very beneficial. Um, and more than ever do I have scientists of color that's like, hey, if you need a speaker or um, if you're doing this, I have these funds. We could collaborate. I
Hmm.
am blessed to have so many opportunities that I'm able to provide for young people. And I feel like I'm just getting started with Scientists That Elevate Me. So I can only imagine what we will do in the next 5 years.
I'm excited to see where you're going to be in the next 5 years.
yes, me too.
Oh man, how many scientists do you have on your roster of people who are willing to? I know that number fluctuates,
Yes.
but on average.
So typically, so I probably have worked with about 30 scientists of color.
Mm,
Um, I meet scientists of color in different ways, but when I think about like who has came, did some type of presentations, but I do have reoccurring scientists who consistently do work because this is the work that they're passionate about. Um, so yes, it definitely varies, but it's always a good time.
it better be because it
Yeah.
sounds like it is. No, that. So what? Let's see. What advice do you have for mentors, educators, caretakers in supporting their mentees, students, and children who are pursuing STEM? As someone who has a STEM business and someone who's also working at the same time, all of
Mhm.
those things.
I would say when you are mentoring to be open to listen to your mentees and to expand their network and expose them to opportunities, and not just expose them to opportunities, but encourage them or walk them through the process. So something that I can honestly say as a first generation college student is I don't just, if I have a mentee, I'm not just sending them a REU opportunity. I'll send them the REU opportunity and tell them, hey, let's schedule a time so we can chat about this.
Mm,
And then I'm like, is this something you're interested in? Oh, this is something I would like to apply for. And then looking at what's required, are they eligible? Do they have the prereqs that are needed for it? And then what is needed for the application process? And the reason why I say this is because as first generation college students, we don't have all the answers.
hmm.
And knowing when you know better, you do better. But when you have proper guidance, you can go a lot further. So I am often looking at resumes, personal statements, guiding students on who to ask for a letter of recommendation, and building a marketable packet, because so many times we encourage scholars to apply, but
Don't give them the resources to do
don't,
the
and they
applicant.
need to
Yeah.
be a strong applicant because they are specifically for REUs, they are competing against students nationwide.
Hmm.
And so just saying like, oh, you should apply to this is one thing, but taking the steps that's needed. And then I really encourage anyone that I mentor to mentor someone else. That is my deal. You need a mentor? I have space, but can you mentor someone else? Because if you're a college student, there's a high school student, it could be someone in your family, it can be a sister, it can be a brother. But if you look at the logo for Scientists That Elevate Me, it is reaching back.
Hmm.
So you always want to pay it forward. And sometimes I think students and even my graduate students, you're in grad school. There's an undergrad student that needs you. And it's not like you have to just devote your entire time. But knowing what I know about how much time we spend on social media, you have 30 minutes
Hmm.
a week or every 2 weeks to meet with someone and give back. If it's, hey, these are this is the classes you should take. What is your learning style? This professor is more of this learning style. It's like, it's so much work to do. And if
But
we
it's
all,
rewarding.
it is, and if we all pitch in just a little bit, you don't, and I tell scientists, you don't have to mentor 10 or 12 students. If you're in industry, you don't have to have all of those students, but if you can have one or two where you meet with once a month, that is very impactful, and it's like it's life changing, and that's what we need to know. So many people poured into me. That's why I'm able to do the work that I'm doing, and that's why I'm able to be as far as I am, because neither of my parents graduated from college or attended a college. So fast forward. what's that? Like, we literally had to go through so many different learning experiences. And so if someone can help with just one thing, that family will be better off.
I love that so much. And I was just thinking while you were talking about this, how much Dr. Jones has inspired you and that you took
Yes.
what they did for you and ran with it and turned it into a whole.
Yes. And yeah, it is actually, it's funny because whenever I'm gonna make a huge career decision, my mom is like, "Did you talk to Dr. Jones about that?" And I'm like, so even when I was going to grad school, because I had a full-time job, but the assistantship paid less. And my mom was like, "Are they trying to trick you? That's not sounding right. How are you making less money and you're gonna have a master's degree?" I had to pull Dr. Jones in and say, "Can you please explain the assistantship to my mom? Cause she in her mind thinks that someone is gonna trick me." He was like, "Don't worry, don't worry." So he explained it to my mom. And one day I was just like, "You know what? I think I'm gonna postpone a PhD." And she was like, "Oh, you going? Cause Dr. Jones said," and I'm like, "Oh." So having those mentors that can guide your family and talk to your family about this space that they are not knowledgeable in is very beneficial.
Oh, 100%. Because
Yeah.
you like, if you can, your family being there for you, it definitely helps in that
Yes.
support aspect. Because support is what you need throughout everything.
Oh, yeah.
So how can these families, these teachers, people who are going to be watching this, how can they connect with you, connect to scientists that elevate me so they can
Yes.
have access to these resources to help their students?
So on Sciences That Elevate Me, we have an Instagram page. And so we really don't post a lot during the summer, but in September, we'll start posting opportunities. So if there's REUs, scholarships, or if you are a faculty or a staff and you have opportunities, you can send them to us and we will share. So on IG, Instagram, it is Scientists That Elevate Me. And then our email address is www.scientiststhatelevateme@gmail.com. And then our website is www.scientiststhatelevateme.com.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
So everything is Scientists That Elevate Me, no matter if it's Instagram, the website, or the email address.
Okay, so we are running out of time, so I have to move on to the last couple of questions that are my favorite questions to ask and the most important questions of all. So, what does African American representation in STEM mean to you? I know we've been talking about that this entire time,
Mhm.
but let's make it a succinct message of what it means to you.
It means everything. To be able to see it is to believe it. And so knowing that your journey and your path, if it's non-traditional, if it's not what's expected, you can still be who you desire to be if you put in the work and you do the work that needs to be done. And so students being able to connect with people that look like them and share those identities is very, very, very much needed because they're learning and they're growing differently. And so having someone who have those identities is life changing. So I truly believe representation matters, which is why I really push and do what's needed to expose students younger so they're able to gain that foundation and that knowledge needed to be successful within those intro college classes, which are typically the weed out courses.
Yes, most definitely. And the final question is, what advice do you have for members of our audience that want to follow a similar path as you? So these are the middle schoolers and high schoolers who might be potentially watching this interview.
Do not put yourself in a box. You can do it. Every job, every career is not a traditional job or experience. And so I say that because I have a friend and no one is doing what it is that she is doing. And I had to let her know it's never been done, but yet you can do it. And so not allowing people to put you in a box, being innovative and being a creator, and it's crazy because we want our scientists to be thinkers, but yet we want to control other parts of their thinking. And so for my young people, you can do it. Get a mentor, take advantages of all of the opportunities. If it's a workshop, if it's a seminar, sit in the first few rows, introduce yourself to the speaker, make sure you have a LinkedIn, make sure you follow up with people and connect, ask questions. You're already starting off with a no. You have nothing to lose. So believe in yourself, do what needs to be done, and make sure that you have a mentor, someone that you can build a relationship with and someone that you trust.
Well, on that note, thank you, Dr. Tay,
Yes.
for sharing your time and your story with us. And to everyone watching, thank you for spending your time with the National Museum of African American History and Cultures, Through the Window and Into the Mirror, a career conversation series. Before you go, please remember, history is made by doing ordinary tasks extraordinarily well over long periods of time. Thank you. Bye, everybody.